Why hello again. It's me in the same outfit, like I told you I would be. Hi, hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Amber. And if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. Today we're gonna be talking about something really fun. Well, something dark, something I find fun. Something that involves, what's the best way to put it? Poetry kind of thing, literature, literary attributes, metaphors, similes, things of that sort. So if that's not your thing, that's fine. But today we're going to be talking about Nick Cross's The Clockwork Elves. Now, if you don't know who Nick Cross is, that's fine. I didn't know who it was until before I found this video. A little backstory, I found this video while researching for Long Gone Gulch. I was on Zach Bellissimo's Twitter page, because I like to stalk people who I talk about, and he had retweeted a video from Nick Cross saying this is one of his favorite videos ever and it's one of a kind. And it's like, well, if he thinks it's one of a kind, I want to watch it. And I watched it and I was like, I know this art style. I recognize it. It's something I've seen before. Nick Cross, for those of you who have seen the show, was the art supervisor for Over the Garden Wall. And it is very obvious when you watch this because a lot of it looks similar to a lot of things you would see in that show because he was the art supervisor, so obviously it would. And I just think he's fantastic. He is a independent Canadian animator. He's also very prominent in a lot of Cartoon Network and I think Nickelodeon shows, but he's made a lot of really interesting short films in the past couple decades. Some of his most noteworthy ones are Perihelion? It's called Perihelion, right? Perihelion. Oh, Perihelion. He's in a recent show called Tig and Steak, Uncle Grandpa, Apple and Onion, and that's a lot of stuff that you may or may not know. But to summarize his work, it's very retro. Like, think anywhere between like the 30s to the 80s, that kind of thing. And a lot of it is political commentary in a way. I think there's a couple that aren't, but most of the ones that I saw were. And that might put some people off, but I personally really liked it. Thought they were really fun. You can kind of get an idea of his thoughts in politics. This one is, but it isn't. Clockwork Elves is more of a look at spirituality, time, human evolution, I guess. I think that's like the best way to put it. So backstory, like the technical things. This 3-minute video took him 7 years to make. And it's probably because he had other things he was working on as well. But it's a very detailed, very well animated short, made in Toon Boom, After Effects, and Photoshop for the backgrounds and such. His description of it was, "The Clockwork Elves could be a psychotropic exploration of spirituality and death, or it could just be a tale of a little goofball hopped up on goofballs. Either way, it's a cartoon." That's what's in his description. I just kind of wanted to review it because I don't think I saw any reviews on it, and if I did, oops. It's something that really gets me because it has a lot of allusions to religious iconography, mythology, human beginnings, things that I personally am very fond of talking about, at least. I don't belong necessarily to a specific religious group. I grew up in a Christian household. That is neither here nor there, but I do have a lot of familiarity with a lot of the things that are present in this short. So let's dissect it, shall we? The beginning of the video starts with a brilliant sunset, and we see a lot of nature. We see animals, we see life and death. We see like a dead rabbit, a falcon eating a dead being that it caught. And we see a lot of like luscious trees and plants and things of that nature. So we get the idea that this is obviously a forest, very primitive. There's no humans in sight technically, and it's a lot of foreshadowing, to be quite honest. It's a very slow beginning. It's a very nice, calm, okay, we're here on Earth, we're in a familiar place. And obviously, it is alluding to the circle of life, how nature came into being, how death supports life, how life supports death, and so on and so forth. You cannot have life without death, you cannot have death without life, that kind of thing. Then we cut to a scene where we see a sleeping person. I've seen them alluded to as a woman, and I've seen them alluded to as a man, but I'm going to use they, them pronouns because I have no idea and I don't think it necessarily matters, but there we are. I'm assuming this is supposed to be an elf by the title. They wake up in a tiny little cove inside of a tree where a bunch of really beautiful plants and mushrooms and fungi and things are planted. Something to note is that there is a plant specifically placed above them, and I've read this in a comment. I'm going to read what I found. It says, it has datura, which I had never heard of that before. Datura is a plant that can be used as a drug by shamans for religious practices. Hallucinogenic, technically. You take it to have a religious experience. They wake up and they look like they're having a feeling where they're being called awake. That's what I gathered from this scene. And as they wake up, they see the forest above them. They say it's beauty. And I don't know if this is something they saw or this is just something that happened when they woke up. But in the cloudscape above, we see speckles of ashes. That is very clearly a bad omen of some sort. It's the beginning of bad times. So like when you have good, you have bad, obviously. You have the things that will be good for the earth, like, you know, animals, the balance of nature, how predators prey on prey and prey are managed by predators, and how man is the top of the food chain, technically. And we are not really well managed. We are overpopulating the earth. And I think that's kind of a statement on that, on how when man steps on earth, it's like, oh no, it's the beginning of the end already. I don't know if that's technically what he was going for, but that's what I picked up on. As the sun rises further, they stretch and yawn and start wandering off into the forest. This can be the fact that man is young and that they are discovering their environment, discovering the plants and the trees and the animals. They seem very enthralled with everything they've seen. So this is very much like a Garden of Eden type of situation, except it's just one person. And as they're walking along this way, they see an opening where light is shining through. Naturally, they are very intrigued by this and they climb a mountain. Now, this is something really important that you need to realize when this is happening. As they are climbing and as they get to the top, you will see several scenes where it switches. So like as they're climbing, you'll see where it goes back and it looks like they're going through a different landscape or a different time of day. And I interpreted that as this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened on many occasions with many different people, but they are all the same in their pursuit. The pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of truth, the pursuit of exploration. They're very daring. Once they reach the top, they find this creature that is bipedal and it has a head, but the head is covered in eyes. This is very representative, from what I understand, of Ophanim. Ophanim are angels in the Bible, and I believe they're not messengers, that's seraphim. They might be. I'll put it here. I kind of know the difference, but I don't remember which one does which, so forgive me. But they are ophanim. Ophanim in the Bible, especially I think it's in Ezekiel, are two wheels with eyes on all the way going around and wings. This is not that technically, but it does have several eyes, and it is in a circle. So that is what I think of. They reach out and they have a bowl ready and waiting over a fire, and they beckon it. They beckon the traveler, and they wave hello, and then they disappear, leaving the bowl floating. It looks like some sort of soup, clear, kind of milky white soup. The elf, human, man, person comes over to the bowl, grabs it, sniffs it, is a little wary at first, but then they drink it. And as soon as they drink it, they have visions of varying sorts. They'll see things that relate to life and death, war and famine, various ailments. They also, and this is according to a comment that I found, and I didn't piece together this part, but I was like, oh, I see it now. They gain knowledge. So if you know the Bible, you know the beginning of Genesis, that Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil. So they are gaining knowledge of not only their bodies, but of the outer world, of maybe the future, what's to come, what is happening now, and this expands their mind. So they are currently just like, whoa, I'm learning everything about the world. So naturally, once you learn everything that there is, or you get a message of some sort, you want to spread it with your fellow man. So this is the part that I went, oh, we are halfway through the video. We are at 1:50 or somewhere around. And our main character is at the edge of this campsite where a bunch of their kind are sitting around the fire and eating, community style, like you would see with early man. And they turn around and they come forward, and we know that she is one of them technically. But when they see her, they don't see one of them. They see a weird hexagonal creature with dozens of eyes, several mouths, all screeching and weird, and they act a lot like the creature that they saw before. Now, if you know anything about life in general, people who bring knowledge, like scientists or prophets of old, or fortune tellers or oracles or whatever you want to call them, they are often not received well. The truth is something that can be very difficult for a lot of people to accept. Of course, there can be false prophets, people who take advantage of you, bad faith actors, but in historical sense, a lot of people who try to spread words of truth or discovery are often, or something that goes against your status quo, are often regarded with fear, with trepidation. People in power often don't like it. They either try to kill them, to knock them down, or to erase them completely. And that's what happens with our main character here. They are knocked down from behind by one of the elves, and their head is bashed open and like blood comes out, and there's like tubes and everything, but the blood turns into a terrible creature. And the creature squishes one of their heads, and they're all running for their lives, screaming, afraid. And then you see a golden chalice that is suddenly filled with wine or blood. Christianity-wise, you will often see this with communion or with the Last Supper of Christ. If you are a Christian, you'll know that in the communion, the blood of Christ is often the wine in a cup, and it signifies sacrifice, rebirth, things of that nature. Here, it's very closely tied to martyrdom, sacrifice, and technically like new birth, new era, that kind of thing. And this happens right after one of the people die, and it's interspliced with the monster wrecking through their campsite before it dies itself. So this is not just a one-time occurrence. This is something that has happened through history, and we find that if we don't listen to these people who try to bring us knowledge, it'll either A, tear us apart as humanity, or a culture. It often takes a long time for society to accept new information or new things, or things that technically have always been. We just replace it with our own standards or beliefs. So yes, this is very clearly a reference to prophecy, or people who try to spread the truth or knowledge with people. And of course people get very afraid. They see it as a threat, and people in power will often try to intervene or intercept or rewrite. Then from there, depictions of time traveling really fast. So we get famines, we get plagues, we get genocide, technically. We get flashes of industrialization, fast-moving pace of human civilization, monarchies, democracies, wars, everything. Some good things interspliced in between. We'll get some religious iconography in there somehow, like we get the figure of the burning bush from the story of Moses. If you don't know what that is, the burning bush refers to God talking to Moses and instructing him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And the plagues follow soon after, because the Pharaoh Ramses II allegedly does not heed Moses' words, so God rains down fire and brimstone and whatever else he can rain down upon them. And it's kind of like referential to fighting against the natural order of the world. That's what humans like to do. It's our thing. Also interspliced in between are images of owls and wolves. Owls are typically known to represent knowledge and truth. This comes, at least from what I understand, from my own research, from the goddess Athena, the Greek goddess Athena, who was big on strategy and knowledge and things of that sort. And wolves are often attributed with power and control. So you have those two often at war. Sometimes they work together in tandem, and sometimes they are often like eras of their own. Yeah, so we get, as we go along, time gets faster and faster. We get like really small snippets of like industrialization up to current time, where we see things like deforestation, pollution, slaughterhouses, empty cities and burning landscapes, atomic bombs and missiles. We see several different like monarchs and stuff throughout the time, and then we start getting into atomic bombs and our fears of war, and eventually we get to a screen where there is a person who is being melted by, I assume, an atomic blast or some sort of devastation. And it fades away from there. So like all of that fast-paced stuff slows down and stops. That signifies the end of human civilization as it was. And then we focus in on a scene where there's another one of those hexagonal things that looked like our human from before, and a human behind it that is dying. The hexagonal thing has its head chopped off. I didn't understand what it was at first, but I think it's one of the final warning, or the prophets, who tried to stop whatever was coming, and they were destroyed, either in the war or prior to it, and no one listened to them, and everyone died. But right next to them is the angelic creature we saw from before, who is standing up and kind of like looks distraught almost. Like, you know, I tried to warn you and y'all didn't listen, so I gotta do something about this. Which is immediately followed by a figure. And now this figure, it took me forever to find and research who this could be, because there's no reference anywhere that I could find as to who this is. My first thought was that this is the Greek pre-Socratic depiction of time, Chronos. That was the only thing I could come up with, because it was time, and it was time going backwards, because they went like this, and suddenly everything that we had seen before had reversed and come back full circle. But then I went through, and I think it's more related to the god of the Roman god Janus. Janus is the god of new beginnings and transitions, initiator of human life, technically. Middle ground of new and old, war and peace, and all of the other differences you can think of. So I think Janus is that god-like figure, and I only assume that it's Roman because of the way that they portray him, because he looks like those, like the way that you would portray a Roman god or a Greek god. They're naked and they're wearing like robes, and they have like a really fancy spear. Once they do that and they thrust their spear upward, time resets. Or that's what I think happens. And we go from drab and dark, probably sunset, to sunrise. And we go on loop, and the first thing we see before the end is a bunch of crows or ravens sitting on twisted metal spires. And then there's no credits, so you could literally put this video on loop and it'd be again and again and again, and you'd get the same thing. So where does that leave us specifically? The conclusion I came up with this video, besides it being extremely weird and also very disturbing, but also very pretty, all of those things, it's basically about the cyclical nature of life. Whether that be spiritual, whether that be evolutionary or scientific, or just the inherent nature of human beings. It talks about life, death, progress, regression, evolution, truth and power, and is quite literally fascinating and terrifying all at once. It's also just pointing out the fact that even when humans learn the truth, oftentimes we may still be destined for horrific death because we just don't want to listen. And maybe even if we do, there's still no stopping what happens. And maybe history is just doomed to repeat itself, especially in the terms of life and death, cycle of knowledge and power, and the fight between, you know, fear and security, and all of those things that we currently still deal with today, and that religious things still deal with today, and how we depend upon religion for things of that nature. And this is the final line I put on my conclusion. Are you ready? It says, death is unavoidable, but ignorance is not. We can learn. It's not impossible. We can learn to change things, to rewrite what we do, to not depend upon the monkey monarchs and the clunky systems we have in place that we can change, that we should change. But the cycle part of it comes in is, do we choose to? And the Clockwork Elves portrays the idea that time and time again, a lot of times we don't. A lot of times we fall to the wayside and choose the way of power over knowledge. It was really nicely portrayed, and just how fast it was, I was like, this is too fast at first. I was like, no, this makes sense for what the topic we're talking about, because time does go fast when you innovate. For a long period of time, humans were stuck in a system of, you know, trying to get past sicknesses and diseases and wild animals and fighting for land, and we still technically do. I mean, don't get it wrong, we do. But we have other issues now. We have technology. We have the problems that come with technology. We are more connected now than we ever were before. And that can both be a good thing and a bad thing. I think in a lot of ways it's more of a good thing. so we can work out a lot of our issues, but a lot of people refuse to. And that is a problem that we need to overcome. And I highly encourage you to watch more of Nick Cross's stuff. It's very fun, very riveting. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I watched so many of his things in one day, and I really wanted to share this video because it gets my literary self really excited. And my battery's about to die, so I gotta wrap this up quick. There will be more videos coming soon. Hopefully I'll get this one up ASAP, lickety split, because I really enjoyed this video. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying well, staying hydrated, and doing what you gotta do to stay alive. And consider a lot of things, especially after you watch this video. And if you haven't watched Nick Cross's video yet, please, I'll link it in the description. Please go watch it. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day, great night, whatever. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.